raw dog food the best food to keep your dog alive as long as possible? There's a lot of misinformation and speculation about what to feed your dog, but this video is going to cut through all the noise. My name is Nick. For some credentials, I'm a certified canine nutritionist through the University of Southern Illinois, an accredited university, not an online program. I have researched and experimented for years with what food to feed all three of my dogs. I want to start by emphasizing that every statistic and fact I mention is backed by peer-reviewed scientific research. I believe in providing information based on solid evidence. So with that said, let's get started. Ancestral diet and evolution. The most common reason people feed their dogs raw food is the belief that it's their ancestral diet. It's how my dog would have eaten in the wild, they say. This theory is based on the fact that wolves, the ancestor of dogs, eat raw food in the wild today. What this doesn't account for is the fact that dogs have been domesticated for tens of thousands of years. During this time, they've been eating human scraps, which has led to several adaptations in their digestive systems. One key adaptation is the ability to digest carbohydrates. A study comparing the digestive systems of domestic dogs and wild wolves found that domestic dogs have between 4 to 30 copies of the AMY2B gene, which encodes for pancreatic amylase. Wolves, on the other hand, only have 2 copies, and as a reference point, humans, us, usually have about 6 to 20 copies. Domestic dogs also produce both pancreatic and salivary amylase, enzymes that help in the digestion of carbohydrates. The fact that your dog can digest carbohydrates doesn't mean they should only eat carbs. However, it does challenge the notion that a purely ancestral diet is the best for modern dogs. Nutrient content and digestibility. Another key reason people feed raw is the assumption there are more nutrients in raw because it's uncooked. Most people compare raw to kibble, which is not the right comparison. Kibble is cheap, low quality, and filled with animal byproducts and filler ingredients, whereas raw food is literally fresh food just before it's cooked, and that's the argument we're going to focus on here. To start, there is limited research on the benefit of raw diets versus fresh, while most studies on raw are versus kibble for an easy win. The most commonly claimed benefits of raw food are a softer, shinier coat, smaller stools, and of course more nutrients because the food is uncooked. The science does tell us that while there may remain more nutrients in the food, it is less digestible, especially if you optimize how the food is cooked. Linda P. Case, a trusted expert in this field, references a study at the University of Illinois in her book. The study found that dogs had a digestibility rate of 94.6% on cooked food compared to 88.3% on raw food. However, when discussing nutrient availability in reference to just raw and cooked, you're talking about 5% difference in either direction of getting more or less nutrients. This difference is relatively small and isn't going to make a significant difference in your dog's health. And for the most part, any claims of raw being significantly more nutrient-rich are usually just unproven claims. And yes, while raw foods are balanced, they almost always leave out vegetables and fruits. A study from Purdue University found that adding leafy green vegetables to a dog's diet can significantly reduce the risk of certain cancers. Including a variety of fruits and vegetables in your diet can provide essential nutrients and health benefits that are just often overlooked in raw food diets. Bacterial infections. Next, let's discuss the risks of feeding raw food versus cooked food. Bacterial infections such as Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria thrive in temperatures between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. This is known as the danger zone. At 40 degrees Fahrenheit, Salmonella doubles every 10 to 20 hours, while at 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, it doubles every 1 to 2 hours. Dogs have thresholds for bacterial load. However, once the bacteria exceed that threshold, which is different for each dog, it can be fatal. Studies show that about 15 to 20% of raw food contains some form of bacterial infection, just not in the quantities needed to be harmful to dogs. However, to understand the true risk of raw dog food, it's important you understand how many times that food might enter into the danger zone. While the raw dog food company processes it, it has to thaw and go into the danger zone. When that food is then being shipped to you, it can be in the danger zone. When the food is thawing to be eaten by your dog, it can also enter that danger zone. A lot of people feed their dogs raw and they do great on it. But I've never seen the risk reward to be worth it. Like for example, what if the UPS driver takes longer than expected? What if you forget and leave it to thaw just a little bit too long? that could be just enough for the bacteria to grow to dangerous levels. If you think there is zero risk when feeding raw dog food, you're lying to yourself. Is the risk massive? No, absolutely not. A lot would have to go wrong to hurt your dog, but there are documented cases of dogs dying from bacterial infections linked to raw food. One of the most trusted raw dog food brands, the most expensive, sourced from the highest quality farms, has had a few recalls in the last 12 months and even had a dog pass away due to bacterial infection. And it might not have been the company's fault. That dog might have been overly sensitive to raw. But because that family decided to feed their dog raw, that dog is no longer with them today. In comparison, cooked food, as long as you bring the temperature of that food to 165 degrees Fahrenheit, all the bacteria dies. And unless contaminated again by a piece of equipment or other raw food after being cooked, that food is safe, period, until it of course spoils. Cost. This is a big one for a lot of us. Let's talk about the cost. I have 3 50-pound dogs. Feeding just one of them on a popular raw food brand would cost me $248 per month for just one dog. While fresh frozen delivered costs about $150 a month, a lot of the costs of raw and cooked are due to shipping. It's incredibly expensive to ship not only a large package that has dry ice, but to do it fast adds up quickly. And the lower cost of cooked food is primarily due to the inclusion of carbohydrates, which dogs can digest and use for energy, as we now know, rather than relying solely on protein and fats. Protein costs around $4 to $9 per pound, whereas carbohydrates are typically 50 cents to $2 per pound. By preparing a balanced homemade recipe, I've reduced the cost to as low as $80 per month per dog. It's also not an option to buy raw food from your local grocery store. The food is often kept in conditions that assume it will be cooked, allowing the bacteria to spread freely. In conclusion, in all my studies and research, I have not found enough evidence to convince me that raw dog food is more beneficial to feeding my dogs gently cooked. Then to add in the risk of infection and the incredibly high cost, it's why I have fed my dogs fresh food for the last few years. In creating content like this, my mission is always to help your dog be healthier while helping dogs in need. To do this, I give away free samples of my superfood multivitamin treats. They're freeze-dried to retain nutrients, which no one else does, and made from literally 100% human-grade ingredients. If you want to check them out, again, totally free, click the link below. It helps us help dogs like Biscuit here in our local shelters. Hope this helps your dog live longer.